You're rested, but still weak. Strange, isn't it? You sleep, you slow down, you take your precious time off. Yet when you wake up, you're still dragging, still hollow. Like your body got the memo, but your will didn't show up to work. Why? Because this isn't just about fatigue. It's about something deeper, rotting under the surface. Schopenhauer would have told you, the will is the real motor of life. In The World as Will and Representation, he said the body is nothing but the visible expression of the will itself. So if your will is weak, no amount of naps or yoga retreats is gonna fix that. You'll stay heavy, like trying to recharge a dead battery with a pretty charger. Useless. Think about it. Have you ever felt drained, not because you ran a marathon, but because you spend all day pretending to care, pretending to want things you secretly don't? That's will decay. Not burnout, but corrosion of desire itself. Schopenhauer called it a blind, ceaseless striving. But here's the twist. When that striving dries up, we don't find peace. We find emptiness. Rest doesn't replenish you when the part of you that wants has quietly starved to death. And here's the unsettling part. You can't just rest your way back. Because will doesn't return like muscle after sleep. It has to be provoked, even fought for. That's the next question. How do you wake the will back up? And more importantly, what killed it in the first place? We'll get there. Society lied about recharge. You've heard it a million times. You just need to recharge. Take a weekend off, book a spa day, unplug. But tell me, how many Sundays have you woken up just as empty as Friday night? Society keeps pushing this script, that exhaustion is just physical, that if you rest the body, the mind will follow. But here's the disconnect. Your body might be still, but your will, that thing's been bleeding out for years. We're sold this factory reset fantasy, like we're machines that just need downtime to power back up. But Schopenhauer saw right through that. In his view, the core of your being isn't just your body, it's the will to live, a restless drive that keeps pushing forward. When that will is drained, it doesn't matter how many hours you sleep, you'll still feel hollow, because you're not just tired, you're depleted, and no nap fixes depletion. The culture of self-care doesn't touch that. It's a band-aid for a wound that's bone deep. It treats you like a battery, when in truth, you're more like a fire. And a fire doesn't recharge. It either burns or it dies. So the question isn't, how do I recharge? It's, what's suffocating the flame in the first place? And that's where things start to get uncomfortable. Why this problem isn't new. This problem isn't new. Long before burnout was a hashtag, people with power, wealth, and even leisure still felt hollowed out. Look at the Roman emperors, men who had armies, palaces, and pleasures on demand. Yet so many of their letters read like confessions of the deeply exhausted. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men alive, wrote about waking each morning heavy with dread, dragging himself to his duties like a slave to the wheel. That wasn't from lack of rest, it was a crisis of will. Fast forward, same story. Industrial workers in the 19th century were worked to the bone. But the rich weren't exactly thriving either. Many creative geniuses, Kafka, Woolf, Schumann, spoke of a weariness that wasn't physical, but existential. Kafka called it a cage searching for a bird. The body was fine. The soul was gone. And look around today, CEOs with private jets, influencers with millions of followers, confessing publicly that they feel empty. I have everything, but I'm miserable. We see it again and again. Clearly, this isn't about needing more breaks or better vacations. It's something deeper, something about the nature of desire itself. So if it's not the body that's failing, what is? And why does rest fail to cure it? Schopenhauer had an answer. But you're not gonna like it. Schopenhauer's brutal truth: the will drains us. Schopenhauer didn't sugarcoat it. He believed you're drained because you're alive. That's the price of having a will. In his masterpiece, The World as Will and Representation, he describes the will to life as this blind, relentless force pulsing through every living thing. Not a conscious choice, not a noble mission, just an unstoppable push to want, to chase, to consume. It's like an engine that can't shut off, even when you're asleep. That's why you wake up tired. You're not just resting a body, you're dragging around a machine that never stops wanting. You might think, well, I'll just fulfill my desires then. But Schopenhauer is brutal on that point. Even when you get what you want, it's temporary. The hunger returns. That promotion? A high for a week. That relationship? Newness fades. It's a treadmill, not a summit. You never arrive. And here's the kicker. Even when you do manage to pause, to sit still, you don't find peace. You find boredom, a new kind of suffering. He called this the pendulum of human life, swinging endlessly between pain and boredom. You suffer when you want and can't have. You suffer when you have, because then there's nothing left to want. Either way, the will keeps feeding, draining you in the process. Not because society made you work too hard, not because you didn't sleep enough, but because that's the nature of life itself. To live is to be pulled by this invisible undertow of desire. That's why no amount of physical rest touches this deeper exhaustion. Because rest pauses the body, but it doesn't quiet the will. And unless you learn to confront that, you'll stay tired. But Schopenhauer didn't just diagnose the disease, he hinted at a way out, a way to escape the will, even if only temporarily. Let's go there. Your desires are parasites. Think about this. What if it's not your job that's draining you, not your schedule, not your deadlines, but the fact that you want? Every desire you carry, the bigger salary, the perfect partner, the admiration, the legacy, is a little parasite clinging to your mind, sucking energy just by existing. Schopenhauer saw this clearly. The will is a hunger that never stops eating, and each new desire is another mouth to feed. You think chasing status will fulfill you, but it just fattens the parasite. You crave love, not just for connection, but because you want to feel wanted. It's not the love, it's the ego trip. And every time you scratch that itch, it grows back stronger. That's why people hit their goals and still feel depleted. They're not carrying trophies, they're carrying a backpack of hungers that never lighten. It's a brutal thing to admit, but the more you want, the weaker you get. Because wanting costs energy, even before you take a single action. Your brain's running tabs on everything you desire, all the fantasies, all the comparisons, and it drains you quietly, like a phone with too many apps running in the background. So the question isn't, how do I work less? It's, how do you want less? How do you lighten the load of your own desires? That's where Schopenhauer starts pointing toward an escape, a form of relief. But it's not what you'd expect. Modern proof: dopamine and digital fatigue. Schopenhauer's idea of the endless will sounds almost like science fiction, until you look at what modern research tells us about dopamine and digital fatigue. Your brain's reward system is wired to chase wanting, not getting. Every notification, every scroll on social media sparks a tiny hit of dopamine, that feel-good chemical. But here's the catch. Dopamine fuels desire, not satisfaction. It keeps your will spinning, hungry for the next hit. Studies on tech addiction show exactly this pattern. People aren't drained because they're physically exhausted from scrolling. They're worn out by the constant craving. Infinite scrolling? It's a trap for your will, a dopamine loop designed to keep you chasing, never fulfilled. It's Schopenhauer's blind striving playing out in pixel form. Psychologists warn about reward prediction error, the brain's constant guessing and never quite catching up, making you feel restless, empty, always needing more. This isn't just mental fatigue, it's the will bleeding energy from your mind. The more you feed those desires with screens and clicks, the weaker your core becomes. So when you think you're just tired from too much screen time, remember, it's not the doing, but the wanting behind it that wears you down. Your exhaustion isn't a bug. It's the system working exactly as Schopenhauer described, an endless, unsatisfiable drive consuming your energy from the inside out. And if this feels bleak, hang tight. There's a path forward, even if it means breaking out of these dopamine chains. Let's see what that looks like. You'll never be satisfied. Now what? Here's a truth that hits like a gut punch. You'll never be satisfied. No matter what you chase, how many boxes you check, the will, the restless force driving you, never stops. It's not a glitch to fix. It's the condition of being alive. You can't kill the will. It doesn't work like that. But Schopenhauer offers something different, a way to quiet it, to calm that storm inside. His answer isn't in more stuff, more success, or even more rest. It's in renunciation. Asceticism, in his view, isn't about punishment or deprivation. It's about stepping off the treadmill of endless wanting. It's a deliberate choice to pull back from desire, to say enough to the chaos within. This doesn't mean you have to become a monk or give up all pleasure. But it does mean learning how to control the will instead of letting it control you. Schopenhauer also pointed to art and deep contemplation as escapes from the will's grip. When you lose yourself in a great painting, a haunting melody, or a profound idea, you step outside the cycle of craving. For a moment, the will is silent. That's why beauty can feel like salvation. It offers a breath of freedom from the endless chase. So here's the challenge. If the will never rests, maybe your job isn't to fight it or exhaust yourself trying to satisfy it. Maybe it's to learn how to live with it differently, to find those moments of peace, not by adding more, but by taking less. Next, we'll explore what that kind of life looks like and why it's harder than you think. Practical tactics to stop the drain. If quieting the will sounds like a tall order, don't worry. There are practical ways to start. Schopenhauer's path isn't just theory, it's a call to live differently. First up, digital detox. Stepping away from the endless scroll breaks the dopamine cycle that feeds your craving. Give your brain space to breathe instead of chasing the next hit. Next, try contemplative solitude. Spend time alone with your thoughts. No distractions, just silence. This isn't about loneliness, but about tuning out the noise and tuning in to what really matters. It helps you notice which desires are truly yours and which are just background static. Mindful minimalism fits here too. Cutting back on clutter, both physical and mental, means less stuff pulling at your attention. When you reduce external distractions, you reduce the will's footholds. That frees up energy to focus on what truly nourishes you. Finally, creative expression offers a powerful release valve. Whether it's painting, writing, music, or even daydreaming, creating pulls you outside the cycle of endless wanting. It channels your energy into something meaningful, silencing the restless hunger for a while. These aren't quick fixes, but they're steps toward regaining vitality by shrinking the will's demand. Less craving means more freedom, and freedom? That's where real rest begins. Next, we'll look at how these ideas can transform your everyday life, if you're brave enough to try. This isn't self-care, it's strategy. Look, this isn't about adding another trendy self-care checklist to your day. It's not bubble baths and candles. This is strategy, a survival tactic against a world designed to keep you drained and chasing. Wanting less isn't weakness, it's power. Real psychological strength comes when you stop feeding every craving and instead choose what deserves your energy. In a culture obsessed with more hustle, more likes, more noise, pulling back is revolutionary. It's a way to protect your mind from constant assault. Doing less isn't enough if your will is still running wild inside you, pulling you in every direction. You have to want less. That's where the real battle is fought. Schopenhauer's ideas show that the fight isn't external, it's inside. Winning means reclaiming your will, not surrendering it. This isn't about comfort, it's about survival. And when you start treating your desires as something you can manage, control, or even silence, you begin to take back your life. So don't mistake these steps for pampering. They're your toolkit for thriving in a world that's designed to drain you dry. Ready to use it? Rest isn't enough. Rewire your will. Rest alone won't cut it. You can sleep for hours, but if your will is tangled in the same old patterns, you'll wake up just as drained, maybe worse. The real work isn't outside your body, it's inside your mind. It's about rewiring your will, shifting how you relate to desire itself. Schopenhauer dared to say that the fight for peace isn't a battle against exhaustion, but a battle within, against that restless, insatiable force driving you non-stop. Unless you face that force head-on, rest is just a pause button, not a reset. So here's the challenge: don't just rest. Restructure, question what you're chasing. What part of you is still hungry, and why? Is that hunger feeding your life or quietly stealing it? The will never stops pulling, but you can choose which strings it tugs. So what are you still chasing? And, more importantly, is it worth your life force?